Hello, I am James Carter. I am 32 years of age. I reside in a tranquil community located just outside of Denver, Colorado. As a corporate accountant, I bring a level of expertise to my role that reflects my commitment to professionalism. I prefer to maintain a low profile and not draw attention to myself. Most evenings, I return home, have dinner, perhaps watch a game or read, and then conclude my day. There isn't much of interest. I have resided in the same modest house for the past 5 years. My neighbors are familiar with me to the extent that they acknowledge me with a wave and a smile, yet we do not engage in social activities together. I appreciated the tranquility and consistency, or I did until a few days ago. Eliza Matthews resides right next door. At 36, she possesses a captivating beauty, complemented by serene green eyes and an understated strength that is truly remarkable. She was married to Mark, a man in his late 40s. We had exchanged courteous greetings over the years, yet I never truly became acquainted with them. They maintained a reserved demeanor. Mark was the type of individual who appeared to be perpetually rushing to reach another destination. Eliza possessed a serene demeanor that lingered with you, even after just a brief 30-second conversation. Last week, Mark passed away. Cardiac arrest. Unexpected. It spread throughout the neighborhood within hours. I did not attend the funeral. I felt it was not appropriate for me to intervene. However, the following day, precisely the day after his burial, Eliza knocked on my door. The time was approximately 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was working from home, dressed in my hoodie and sweatpants. As I opened the door, I found her standing on my porch, clad in a long black coat. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her eyes appeared red and fatigued, and she held a small cup of a warm beverage, perhaps tea or coffee. "Greetings, James," she inquired gently. "Would it be all right if I entered for a moment?" I certainly allowed her entry. I invited her to take a seat on the couch and prepared some tea. I refrained from asking questions. I anticipated that she would speak when she felt prepared. She sat with her hands neatly placed in her lap, intently observing the steam ascending from the cup. Following an extended period of silence, she ultimately expressed her thoughts. "It seems rather silent next door," she murmured. I believed I could manage, yet I find myself not wanting to be alone at this moment. I acknowledged with a nod. I informed her that an explanation was unnecessary. We sat quietly for a while, enjoying our tea, allowing the silence to envelop the space. It was not awkward. In fact, it felt quite comfortable. Eventually, she began to express her thoughts regarding Mark, discussing the imperfections in their relationship, how they had drifted apart over the past few years, and how at times she felt more like a roommate than a spouse. She did not exhibit any signs of tears. It seemed as though she was gradually allowing the truth to emerge, akin to water seeping through a fissure. She looked at me and said, "I understand it may seem harsh, but a part of me feels as though I've already gone through this grieving process before. I had already lost him emotionally long before his physical absence became a reality. I was uncertain about what to express, so I chose to remain mostly silent. Merely acknowledged with a nod. It appeared that was all she required. Before departing, she surveyed my living room and offered a gentle smile. "It is warm here," she remarked, and then she departed. Exactly like that. Returning to her vacant residence. However, a shift had occurred. For the two of us. The following morning, after Eliza's initial visit, my focus was completely disrupted. I had emails to respond to, spreadsheets to analyze, and reports due by the end of the week, yet my mind was consumed by the image of her on my couch, cradling that cup of tea as if it were her sole anchor. There was an undeniable quality to her speech, marked by a striking honesty and authenticity that resonated deeply with me. Not in a negative manner. It simply remained with me. By noon, I had not consumed any food. I had been focused on the same document for 15 minutes when I heard another knock at the door. I opened it, and there she appeared once more. This time, there will be no long coat. Kong Trang Diem. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a gray hoodie that draped off her shoulders, suggesting it had been her go-to for several days. She held 2 brown paper bags from Charlie's Deli, the sandwich shop located just a few blocks away. She remarked with a slight smile that it seemed you might have overlooked eating. I nearly did as well. "I would like to bring lunch, if that is acceptable to you." She entered without waiting for a response, as if it were a familiar routine. For some reason, it seemed appropriate. We gathered on the back patio. The sky appeared overcast and dull, yet the atmosphere remained crisp and invigorating. She presented me with a turkey and Swiss, and we both sat in silence, methodically unwrapping our sandwiches. Initially, we refrained from conversation, and I chose not to impose it. She took small bites, her gaze focused on the line of trees beyond the fence, as if she were lost in distant thoughts. Ultimately, she ended the silence. "It's unusual," she remarked, her voice subdued. "I expected to feel more overwhelmed. I anticipated waking up in distress, perhaps shouting something out loud. However, I find myself feeling hollow, as if I am navigating through another person's existence." I cast a brief look in her direction, yet she did not return my gaze. She maintained her focus on the trees. "I have been carrying this knot in my chest for an extended period, James, even prior to Mark's passing. The sorrow seems to have begun long ago, at the point when our relationship shifted, when we ceased to truly acknowledge one another." I allowed her to speak. I did not interrupt. I remained seated and attentively listened. She exhaled softly, then proceeded. "We were once very close. I truly cared for him, but his professional commitments became increasingly demanding. He increased his travels, returned home at a later hour, and engaged in fewer conversations. I began having dinner by myself, even when he was present in the same house. We shared the same bed, yet it seemed as though we were worlds apart." She finally turned to me, her eyes somewhat glassy yet unwavering. "Have you ever experienced the sensation of gradually fading away within your own residence?" I nodded, not from personal experience, but from a deep understanding of the loneliness she was articulating. "I believe each individual approaches it uniquely." There was a brief moment of silence, followed by her gentle, somewhat shy laughter. "I apologize for overwhelming you with my thoughts. I was uncertain about whom to approach for a conversation." "There is no need for an apology," I stated. "At times, having someone to share a moment with is essential." She offered me a look at that moment, filled with appreciation, perhaps even somewhat taken aback. During the following hour, we engaged in conversation. It is no longer focused on Mark, nor on sorrow. We discussed minor details. Films, our preferred coffee establishments, and the time she adopted a cat that disappeared just a week later. I shared with her the incident when I inadvertently sent a company-wide email containing a typo in the subject line that read pubic announcement. She laughed heartily at that remark, and for the first time, she appeared to be someone who still possessed a sense of joy. At a certain moment, I sensed her hand lightly graze mine on the patio table. It lingered for a moment, just sufficient for us to observe before she retracted it delicately. Her expression shifted, perhaps revealing a subtle hint of remorse. "In light of the uncertainty, it would be prudent for me to depart," she exclaimed abruptly, rising to her feet. "This may be premature. I want to clarify that my intention is not to rely on you as an emotional support." I stood as well. "You did not." "I am referring to that." She paused at the entrance. "I preferred not to spend today in solitude." I acknowledged with a nod. "In that case, refrain from doing so. Whenever you wish to engage in conversation or prefer silence, I am available to support you." The silence that ensued was laden with an undeniable weight. It seemed that neither of us was inclined to articulate the situation, yet we both sensed its presence. A transition, an embrace of warmth, an unexpected intimacy between us. She acknowledged with a measured nod. "Thank you, James." "Is that so?" She then stepped outside and made her way across the grass to her residence. I observed her departure, arms folded across her chest, hair gently swaying in the breeze. A shift had occurred. I was unable to articulate it, yet I was aware that we had transcended a boundary. No physical interactions had occurred. Kong ko nu han, kong ko tsiom. However, an unarticulated connection had begun to develop between us, and it was not diminishing. The day commenced with a sense of tranquility. The morning was overcast, with a dense atmosphere that typically signaled impending rain lingering in the air. I positioned myself at my kitchen table, holding a lukewarm cup of coffee, as I endeavored to navigate through some emails, yet nothing seemed to resonate. My thoughts were wandering, repeatedly returning to Eliza. It was not merely the occurrence of her visit yesterday. That was the sensation experienced during her presence. Her presence lingered with me longer than I anticipated. Her words lingered in my mind, as did the way she regarded me, a blend of loss and familiarity in her gaze. Then came that moment, a subtle touch of her hands on the patio table, yet it lingered in my mind as if it were something far more significant. After lunch, I approached the window that overlooked her backyard. I was not verifying her presence. Ultimately, that was the conclusion I reached. There she stood at the edge of her porch, arms securely wrapped around herself, as if she were attempting to contain something within. She appeared diminutive and hesitant, resembling an individual poised on the brink of an action they were uncertain about undertaking. 10 foot troi qua, Saudula 15 foot. Then there was a knock. I anticipated it would be her before I even opened the door. Eliza stood poised in a navy blue sweater that draped elegantly off one shoulder, complemented by a sleek pair of black leggings. Without makeup or jewelry, it was simply her essence. She appeared fatigued, yet her eyes conveyed a subtle intensity, as if she had been deeply contemplating something. "May I enter?" she inquired gently. "Indeed," I stated, moving aside promptly. She entered the living room with a deliberate pace, reminiscent of the previous day, yet this time there was a noticeable hesitation in her step, as if she were questioning the appropriateness of her actions. I did not hurry her. I remained still for a moment, observing her as she surveyed the room, as if it held the key to some elusive answer. She stated after a pause that she hadn't intended to attend. "I have been deliberating for the past hour, but I am uncertain of where to turn next." "There is no necessity for justification," I stated calmly. Eliza approached the couch and took a seat, curling up on one side as if seeking a moment of comfort and solace. I positioned myself opposite her, allowing her the necessary space. The atmosphere was serene for a moment, accompanied only by the faint hum of traffic beyond and the rhythmic ticking of the vintage wall clock. "I am unsure of how to navigate solitude," she stated, finally shattering the silence. "I transitioned from residing with my parents to sharing a home with Mark. That is all I have ever known." There was consistently an individual present. "At this moment, I am alone," I acknowledged with a slow nod. "It is a challenging transition." She released a breath. "I experienced a sense of solitude for an extended period, even prior to his passing. It felt as though I was grieving the conclusion of our relationship even before his departure." Her words carried weight, and it was evident that she chose them with great care. I leaned forward, placing my elbows on my knees with a composed demeanor. "The experience of that kind of loneliness is truly harsh," I remarked. "It is distinct when an individual is present in person, yet emotionally, they may not truly connect with you." She gazed at me then, with unwavering focus. Her voice became softer. "Do you believe it's inappropriate that I don't experience guilt being present in this situation? I have no reservations about communicating with you in this manner." It was quite prompt. I chose not to respond hastily. I aimed to choose my words with precision. "No," I stated firmly. "I believe there is no set timeline for experiencing grief or forming connections. At times, individuals enter our lives precisely when we require their presence the most. That does not render it incorrect." Her eyes softened, as if she had been patiently anticipating my words. She whispered, "I simply didn't anticipate feeling drawn to someone at this moment." I did not either. She then glanced at her hands, fidgeting with the hem of her sleeve. "I prefer not to return there this evening. It's not that I'm avoiding the situation. Rather, I find it difficult to remain in that house once more. I sense an overwhelming pressure closing in on me." It was clear that she was sincere. It was a straightforward situation without any embellishment. A woman was approaching the maximum capacity of her individual strength. "There is no need for an explanation," I stated calmly. "If you require a space to relax, I will prepare the guest room for you." Eliza blinked rapidly, striving to hold back her tears. Your response was unexpected. "Eliza, you are not alone." She nodded slowly, and for the first time that day, a subtle smile graced her lips. Afterward, I retrieved fresh sheets from the closet and prepared the spare room while she relaxed in the living room, enjoying the chamomile tea I had prepared. Our conversation was limited. The silence was a natural presence, offering a sense of comfort. Prior to retiring for the night, she approached me once more, calm and composed, fostering a serene connection. "Thank you, James," she expressed with a gentle tone. "For this, for minimizing inquiries, for restoring my sense of individuality." She then advanced and embraced me. It lacked any romantic elements. It was approached with careful consideration. It was a human being. Her head rested softly against my shoulder, and I embraced her with both arms, steady and composed. It was an unforgettable embrace. As we finally released our hold, she softly murmured, "Good night." She then proceeded down the hall and entered the guest room. I paused for a moment, solitary in the stillness of the house, lingering in the warmth of her touch. For the first time in quite some time, I became aware that a shift had occurred. I had a restless night, not due to any particular incident. Nothing occurred, yet I remained conscious of the situation. Conscious of Eliza's presence in the room down the hall. Conscious of the burden she bore. Understanding that this situation extended beyond a mere neighbor staying over. This was a woman who had just laid her husband to rest, and now, for reasons she may not entirely comprehend, opted to spend the night in my residence. The walls appeared to be less substantial. Each sound resonated more intensely, and my thoughts continued to whirl uncontrollably. I found myself reflecting on the way she embraced me. It lacked any romantic elements. It lacked any dramatic elements. It was profoundly relatable. The kind of embrace that lingers in memory, not due to its implications, but because of the profound sense of necessity it conveyed. As the sky began to brighten, I rose from my bed. The residence was devoid of sound. I proceeded with caution, aiming to avoid disturbing her. I prepared a pot of coffee and positioned myself by the kitchen window, cradling the warm mug with both hands, observing the gentle morning light cascade over the backyard fence. Approximately 20 minutes later, I detected her footsteps. Gentle and measured, as if she were uncertain about her presence. She emerged in the hallway, draped in a light gray blanket from a guest room. Her hair slightly disheveled, her expression serene yet weary. Still stunning, yet transformed in a unique manner now. Authentic and unfiltered. "Good morning," she said softly. "Hello," I said with a slight smile. I prepared coffee. She acknowledged with a nod, entered the kitchen, and accepted the mug I offered her. We remained in silence for a moment, simply enjoying our drinks. The silence held a certain significance. It was not uncomfortable. It was rejuvenating. She took a seat at the table, wrapping the blanket more snugly around herself. She gazed out the window for a considerable time, then remarked, "I have no idea what I'm doing." I positioned myself opposite her. "I believe that may not be appropriate, Eliza. You are navigating through it step by step. That will suffice." She acknowledged with a slow nod. I find myself reflecting on the emotions of yesterday. As I sat here, engaging in conversation and even taking a breath, it felt as though I had reclaimed a small part of myself. She then directed her gaze towards me. Her eyes conveyed a certain depth. Neither romance nor confusion, only profoundness. Mark and I were no longer in a relationship. We resided together. We documented a life together, yet emotionally, we remained two unfamiliar individuals sharing the same environment. I was unaware of the emptiness I had developed until I departed from that house. I paid attention. I refrained from interrupting. It was evident that she required the opportunity to express this verbally. I arrived here yesterday as I could no longer endure the silence. At this point, returning is not an option for me. Not at this moment. She remained present for the entire day. A plan was not established. She remained present. I prepared scrambled eggs and toast for us. She assisted me in organizing the laundry, chuckling when she discovered a lone pink sock that had inadvertently ended up among my whites. At one point, we took a stroll around the neighborhood, following a leisurely, measured route. We maintained proximity as we walked together, though our hands did not touch. Our arms brushed against each other on a couple of occasions, yet we chose not to acknowledge it. The day progressed smoothly. That evening, I prepared dinner for us, featuring a straightforward pasta dish accompanied by a fresh salad. Subsequently, we found ourselves on the couch. She elegantly tucked her legs beneath her, cradling a cup of tea in both hands. I positioned myself beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. A nature documentary was playing in the background, yet our attention was elsewhere. Then, in a composed manner, she remarked, "It's peculiar. I experience a sense of tranquility here, as if I am permitted to simply exist. It has been quite a while since I experienced that." I turned to her. "There's no need to hurry. This is unscripted." She raised her gaze to meet mine. Her eyes sought mine for something, perhaps permission, perhaps understanding. "Do you believe it's inappropriate that I don't feel remorse about being here?" she inquired. "No," I expressed softly. "I believe you are taking the necessary steps." "That is accurate." Her head rested gently on my shoulder. I allowed her to take a moment of rest in that location. My arms settled around her, calm and assured, neither forceful nor suggestive. Subsequently, a change occurred. She raised her gaze to meet mine. Our faces were closer than they had ever been. Her gaze remained fixed. I sensed her breath. With careful consideration, she gradually leaned in. Her lips connected with mine, gently and thoughtfully, as if posing a question she hesitated to voice. We shared a kiss, just once. Everything is approached with care. No fireworks, only meaningful connections. Two individuals sought to experience an emotion beyond discomfort. She retracted. "I apologize. There is no requirement for you to be." I responded, my voice subdued. We did not share another kiss. She leaned into me once more, this time settling against my chest. We remained in that position for what seemed to be an hour. Tranquil. Nonetheless, a transformation had occurred. Neither of us wished to articulate it openly. At that moment, I didn't fully grasp the extent of the connection that had developed between us until much later. Initially, we were simply two individuals navigating the complexities of the situations we faced. As the days went by, the simplicity of our shared moments, those morning coffees and quiet evenings together, started to resonate with a deeper significance. Something authentic. It was not abrupt. It was not particularly noteworthy. It was merely a gradual transition. Following that tranquil evening, when Eliza visited and we exchanged a single kiss, soft, tentative, as if it were a question neither of us felt prepared to pose, we did not hastily proceed with anything. Following that night, we each retreated to our own spaces, both requiring time to reflect and process the events that had just unfolded. However, it was not uncomfortable. It was simply inherent. Neither of us was prepared to engage in anything too hastily. We both required the opportunity to progress at our individual rhythms. In the following days, Eliza resided in her own home. She expressed that she was not prepared to let it go. I comprehended the situation. She had to confront it, tidy it up, and organize the memories that remained embedded in the walls. She visited daily for coffee, engaging in conversation and seeking comfort. The sorrow remained, weighing on her heart, yet a subtle bond was forming between us, one that needed no extravagant displays or profound declarations. In the mornings, I would prepare coffee, and we would take a seat on my couch, enjoying it in silence while exchanging our thoughts. At times, she would shed tears. Occasionally, she would find amusement in my clumsy remarks, such as the time I accidentally spilled coffee on the table and made an absurd effort to tidy it up. Only to exacerbate the situation. I noticed an increase in my smiles. Her presence revitalized me, gradually and consistently. Consequently, she was undergoing transformation as well. I was able to observe it clearly. Her eyes had transcended mere sorrow. They began to grasp something different. She started to smile more frequently, even if it was only a slight smile initially. Her laughter flowed more effortlessly. She began to discuss the aspects she had overlooked, the pleasures she once relished before everything had unraveled. I observed her gradually rediscovering her true self. The process was thorough and presented its challenges. With every moment and each day we shared, it became evident that she was on the path to recovery. Not entirely, as grief does not operate in such a manner, but she was acquiring the skills to navigate through it. As time progressed, I came to understand that I was acquiring the skills to achieve the same outcome. Approximately a month later, on a Saturday, she extended an invitation for me to join her at her residence for dinner. I had not visited that place since that initial evening, and I could sense a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Her house was the origin of it all, the location where she had experienced profound loss, the very place her husband had entered each evening through the front door. However, she had invited me over. This time, it had a distinct quality. It seemed like a progression. "I have brought a bottle of wine." She prepared a straightforward dinner, pasta, something light yet satisfying. We dined al fresco on our back patio as the sun gracefully descended below the horizon. The evening air was refreshing, a perfect time to relax and appreciate the tranquility of the surroundings. Our conversation during dinner was quite limited. There was no necessity for that. The conversation flowed effortlessly, as if we had been engaged in this exchange for many years. The atmosphere was relaxed, devoid of any pressure or expectation. The gentle clinking of forks filled the air, accompanied by the subtle hum of the nearby street. We exchanged occasional glances, sharing a light moment whenever one of us made a humorous remark. As the evening progressed, the sky deepened in hue and the subtle illumination from the patio lamps created an inviting ambience around us. At that moment, she directed her gaze towards me, and it was a look that conveyed something distinct from what I had experienced previously. Her eyes no longer reflected sadness or uncertainty. It represented a greater sense of stability, a clearer assurance. "I believe I am prepared," she stated, interrupting the silence. "Prepared for what?" I inquired, uncertain of the direction this was taking, prepared to advance confidently. "I have faced challenges for an extended period, Daniel, and I was uncertain about the path to overcome them. However, in your presence, I feel empowered to do so. It's not solely due to you, but your support has shown me that moving forward is acceptable, and I am not bound by my losses." Her words impacted me more profoundly than I anticipated. Initially, I chose to remain silent. I extended my hand across the table, gently taking hers in mine. It felt appropriate, instinctive. I found no need to express anything. She was aware that I comprehended. I was aware as well. She smiled then, a genuine and warm smile, and I recognized the significant progress she had made in such a brief period. This had evolved beyond her simply moving on from the past. It was about her discovering something novel, something unforeseen, yet something positive. "There is no need for me to hurry into any decisions," she continued. "When I envision the future, you are a part of it, and that holds significance." This time, I smiled, though a hint of nervousness accompanied it. "I don't need to hurry either," I stated calmly. "We will proceed at a measured pace, but I am eager to be by your side, Eliza. I believe it is only fair that we both receive that." The ensuing silence was not burdensome. It was characterized by a deep comprehension. Kong kon ka hoi now nua. We had a mutual understanding that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would confront them as one. From that moment forward, circumstances changed significantly. We approached our relationship with careful consideration rather than rushing into a whirlwind romance. We chose to proceed at our own pace. We continued to enjoy serene mornings together and extended evenings engaged in conversation or attending to small tasks around the house. We appreciated the straightforwardness of our companionship, and as time went on, we increasingly relied on one another. We took our time, and gradually, we both recognized that we had discovered something genuine, something valuable to cherish. Several months later, following numerous dinners and serene evenings, I discovered that I was waking up beside her each day. It wasn't the loud, chaotic kind of love often depicted in novels. Rather, it was a love that felt steady and genuine. It was not about extravagant displays. Rather, it focused on the subtle details, the moments shared, and the understated support offered. I felt a sense of joy, and she mirrored that sentiment, which confirmed my understanding. The conclusion was fitting, allowing both of us to progress while acknowledging the past without allowing it to shape our identities. And just like that, it evolved from merely a narrative of grief into a profound tale of healing and the possibility of second chances.